Welcome to Touchdown Town on BetsTV. I'm Gilles Gallant with FTNBets and BetsTV. It's week 11, and we're here every Sunday morning helping you to make top quality decisions for your touchdown prop bets. I'm going to welcome in my co-host, Brenden Deeg from the National Football Post. Got a new camera looking extra fancy today in his Eagles gear. And Brenden, we got smoked in week 10. It was not a great show. I mean, the show was great. Like, the analysis was on point. A lot of good calls, but a lot of duds, especially on my end.
Process was right, but it just didn't hit. Like, look, today, if you get the ball in the end zone and you're on one of my 5 picks, please catch the ball. I can't go through another two-drop week. I can't do it. Kez Watkins and David Njoku, I can't do it. My mental health can't take it. So if you're one of my 5 guys, please just catch the ball in the end zone.
Well, and I think that's a good thing, too, is just to not get too high or not get too low. This is the whole thing about betting touchdown scores long-term, is that's part of the deal. Like, the markets and the results just have such major swings from week to week. And not only do our like long shot picks or just mid-range picks fall short, but even like favorites fall short. Like, we've seen guys like, I'm not going to use like Dalvin Cook as an example, but like somebody in that range of like the minus 120 range that you think is a lock to score, and he just doesn't get it in. So I would rather, if I'm going to bet my 1 unit per pick kind of thing, the way that we do it, I'd rather go on somebody who's over plus 200 and try to at least triple my money at that point. Before we get started with the picks, wanted to remind everybody to check out my weekly show, Dog Day Afternoon. It's Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on BetsTV. You'll see a familiar face on this past week's edition. It was actually Brenden. He joined me because with the Eagles kind of making a little bit of a playoff push in the NFC and just having some decent wins over the last few weeks with Jalen Hurts actually playing surprisingly well. I wanted to get his take and to hear a little bit more about what would maybe be some of the best bets to look at for the Eagles going forward. So check out that show. It's available at the BetsTV YouTube channel and see what we say going into today's games for futures. So now, Brenden, we've got 5 picks each for the 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern games. I'm going to get us started, but I'm going to have a little disclaimer here before we get started, because my first pick is actually a wide receiver with the Baltimore Ravens. It's Rashad Bateman. It's an anytime touchdown. I got it yesterday at plus 400 before the Hollywood Brown news. I locked that in for our FTNBets subscribers. And I know he's a rookie, and, obviously Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews are the stars on that team, but Bateman is truly a gem. Like, 18 catches, 28 targets in 4 games, 12 of them on third down, so you know that Lamar trusts him. And speaking of Lamar, that's kind of what we're getting at, is that Lamar may not play today just with an illness. So right now we're kind of waiting the news, just like you are, to find out if he's going to start today. If he starts today, I'm still riding with the Bateman bet. If Lamar does get ruled out, I will end up submitting a secondary pick to replace the Bateman pick. So keep that in mind. We'll watch for the news during the show. If the Lamar Jackson news drops during the show, I'll make sure to throw in a 5th pick at the back end. So make sure that we each still have 5. That being said, let's just proceed as if Lamar is going to play. And if he does, he's going to be able to exploit this Bears defense because they're slowly falling apart. No Khalil Mack. Eddie Jackson has hamstring issues. He's probably going to play this week, but I don't know if he's going to be able to play the full slate of snaps at the safety spot. Chicago, they've given up 12 passing touchdowns to wide receivers. That's 28th in the NFL. The teams ahead of them mostly have played one more game as well. And now the Bears, they might give up a bit to the Ravens running the ball, but historically teams have to beat them with the pass. So I think that lines up well for Bateman if Lamar plays, especially since his snaps and targets have increased each game. I wanted to mention to people as well that we track the anytime touchdown score odds and week-to-week odds comparisons at FTNBets. And with that tool, we've been able to finalize and determine that Ravens wide receiver Devin Duvernay is the most profitable touchdown scorer in the NFL after 11 weeks. He's scored only 3 times in 9 games, but had you bet a unit on him each week at DraftKings, you'd be up 11 units in profit. So keep that in mind if you're looking at other wide receivers and if Lamar is playing. So now that I've spit out that full 3-minute diatribe about Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, Brenden, what do you think of my first pick of the week?
I was a huge Rashad Bateman guy in the draft this year. I liked him a lot. He's playing pretty well. When he gets targets, he's making the most of them. I still think Lamar's going to play. I know it's tough. Like, we don't have inside information, but my best guess is he will be there. And like you said, the Bears got a lot of injuries. Like, it's not just the Ravens that are banged up. The Bears are severely banged up. Khalil Mack done for the year. Bears, I think, third most touchdowns to wide receivers?
Yeah,
something like that.
Something like that.
So they're not very good at covering that position. So I like this one a lot at these odds.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing too, is that like coming in, like I thought I was getting a steal at plus 400. Hollywood Brown gets ruled out, and you immediately see Bateman's numbers go down. And I think the reason why I think Lamar is going to play again, I'm not in the locker room, and I'm not 100% certain on Lamar's complete health and status. I'm just looking at it more from an NFL situation of they only have a half game lead on the Steelers, and they're coming off a pretty tough loss against the Dolphins. So they need this win probably more than the Steelers do tonight against the Chargers, in my opinion. So I just think Lamar's going to play. Now, how effective he's going to be remains to be seen. But yeah, so let's get your first pick of the week, Brenden, of week 11.
All right, this guy might not be well-known NFL player. He was kind of made up human to me about 2 weeks ago when I started diving into Titans tight ends. But I like this one a lot. I love this value. I'm going with Michael Pruitt, plus 380 at DraftKings. He is now the starting tight end on the Tennessee Titans as Jeff Swaim is out for today. Anthony Ferguson also is on that roster, but he's been put on the back end of that tight end rotation. He's been the third and second tight end all year. Michael Pruitt will get the most snaps for the Titans today. Texans have struggled against tight ends this season. They've given up the fourth most fantasy points and second most touchdowns to opposing tight ends this season. Titans also have touchdowns by tight ends in 4 of their last 6 games. And Michael Pruitt leads all tight ends on the Titans roster in red zone targets. So I like this one a lot. Plus 380. This is tremendous value against a really bad Texans defense. I'm not huge on this game. I couldn't tell you where this game's going to go. I don't know if this could be a little bit of a letdown spot for the Titans. I think the spread's upwards of 10. So I don't know. I'm not expecting a blow up, but I kind of have this feeling that there's going to be like a little goal line situation, maybe first and goal from the 1 or 2 yard line, and Michael Pruitt will scurry away and get a touchdown from Tannehill. I love these odds. I love this situation. I like finding guys with value that were backups, getting the starting role, and that plus 380 range. I think this is a really good look.
Yeah, and I mean, what's hilarious too about Michael Pruitt is that Ferguson has been given pretty much every opportunity to be the tight end one in that spot, especially once Jonnu left in the offseason. And both of those guys, both Ferguson and Michael Pruitt last year when Jonnu was on the roster, they would be in the plus 800 to plus 1,000 range. Even this year at the start of the year, odds makers didn't really adjust that much, and Michael Pruitt scored a couple of times as like a plus 500 touchdown scorer. So now that he's getting kind of the starting role and emerging as the number one guy, it's very interesting to see his emergence. So I think that at plus 380 or just over, even anything over plus 300, in my opinion, is good odds at this point. So, all right, we're going with pick number 2. I'm going to go over to the Saints, very familiar pick. I'm going with Adam Troutman again. Anytime touchdown at plus 500. The odds are available at BetMGM. And I'm going back to the well on Big Trout because this is kind of one of those situations where the odds are awesome and the stats line up because he still plays over 90% of the snaps for the position. Garrett Griffin barely gets on the field. He's second on the team in red zone targets. And in 3 games since Trevor Siemian has become the quarterback, he's looked for Troutman 6 times in the red zone. And now, Brenden, I'm going to get you to cover your ears because this is a stat that I have to say. The Eagles stink against tight ends this season. I'm sorry, man, but they've allowed 9 catches and 73 yards per game to the tight end position, 8 total touchdowns, and each of these are last in the NFL. Like, again, numbers don't lie. I'm not trying to just beat up on the Eagles, but that's the reality. And for me, I feel like that's great value at plus 500 to get the starting tight end against this kind of team. So I'm going to be going with Troutman. Now, I will just let people know that you can get Saints backup tight end Juwan Johnson at plus 750 at BetMGM, maybe even higher odds at different books. And he might be worth a sprinkle too because he has 3 touchdowns this season.
Yeah, I said it on last week's show. The Eagles struggle mightily against tight ends. Their safety and linebacker positions are probably the worst or bottom 3 in the NFL. So all year, it's a trend definitely to follow. Whoever the opposing tight end is against the Eagles, it's definitely worth a look every single game going forward.
All right, so I've got 2 picks in now for Week 11. Brenden, let's hear your second pick of Week 11 for touchdown scores.
All right, we're going with the tight end. We're going with your boy. We're going Dalton Schultz, plus 230 at FanDuel. We know Amari Cooper in this game. I think that kind of emphasizes Dalton Schultz's role in this offense. He's been really good this year. He's been under the radar, been really helpful in that offense. He's been really good at blocking. And I think Dalton Schultz's role in this offense is going to increase just game by game. They're getting more comfortable with him as the season goes on. He's played 80% of the snaps in 3 of his last 4 games. And the Kansas City Chiefs have given up the second most touchdowns to opposing tight ends this season, tied with the Texans. So I like this one a lot at these odds. Anytime you can get Dalton Schultz over that plus 210, plus 220 range, I think it's a good look. He's a really good player.
Thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging the Dalton Schultz emergence of Dallas.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have to be used a lot today, especially in the blocking game, because Tyron Smith is ruled out as well. So when the Cowboys are missing their starting left tackle, the offense can usually sputter, especially in the run game. So I think with no Cooper, now Schultz is going to have to kind of emerge behind CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. So I definitely like that pick over plus 200.
Yep.
All right, now we're going to move on to my third pick of the week. A run of tight ends right now. And this is one of these auto bets that I've been talking about since the start of the season. Dawson Knox, anytime touchdown at plus 230 right now at FanDuel is my third pick of week 11. And a lot of the same kind of information as last year. He didn't really do much versus the Jets in his first game back from a busted hand because he missed 4 games. But he still leads the team of the Bills with 5 receiving touchdowns despite missing that time. Still third on the team in red zone targets. Second on the team with 3 red zone touchdowns behind Stephon Diggs. And much like the Eagles, the Colts, they've been trash versus tight ends too. 6 receptions and 71 yards per game on average and 6 receiving touchdowns this season, 2 tight ends. Those are bottom 5 in the NFL. And just like I said last week, I swore that if Dawson Knox is ever listed above plus 200, he's going to be an auto bet for me. I'm a man of my word.
I need him in fantasy. I'm kind of I'm 7-3 in fantasy. I've got him. I traded for him, so I'm looking for him to kind of pop off down the stretch. But like you said, automatic bet. Whatever he's over plus 200, it's definitely worth the look. I think he still leads all tight ends in touchdowns, even after being out.
He has 5. The most, I believe, for a tight end this year. I'd have to go double check, but either way,
I think he's still at the top. Yeah, and he missed he missed 3-4 games, so he's been, like you said, touchdown machine. It was on that graphic. He's been exactly that. I like the Bills a lot in this game too. Just in general, I think their offense is going to take off. Bills don't beat teams unless they kick their butts. I think their average wins by over 15 points. So I think this offense is going to get a lot of looks, and the Colts passing defense just hasn't been there. So I like this pick a lot. When you texted, I think it was the first guy you texted me this week, and I was pretty jealous. So,
well, the one thing I will say too, the one reason why it's always, if you can ever get pass catchers on the Bills at a decent odds, I would consider it even like a guy like Gabriel Davis, for example, because they're third in passing attempts per game. Even though they have a pretty strong running attack with Josh Allen, they throw the ball a lot. So the more obviously you throw the ball, the more likely you're going to be able to get touchdown opportunities with guys like Gabriel Davis or Dawson Knox, because you're not really going to get a ton of value on Stephon Diggs or Cole Beasley, and to a lesser extent, Emmanuel Sanders. All those guys are around the plus 140 to plus 160 range. Even Diggs is probably like minus odds for the most part at most books. So, okay, so that is third pick of the week for me. What is your third pick of week 11, Brenden?
All right, so we're ending the tight end train here. We're going with a wide receiver. We're going Bryan Edwards plus 320 for the Las Vegas Raiders. He is now officially wide receiver number 2 after the Henry Ruggs debacle. Look, his snaps are increasing game by game. He's getting more playing time. He's played at least 80% of the snaps in his last 3 games, and he has 2 touchdowns during that stretch. He's become a really good weapon for the Raiders. And look, I think this offense are kind of their backs against the wall. They gotta win this game. I think this is kind of a put up or shut up game for both teams again. And Vegas and Bengals, whoever wins this game will probably kind of take upwards to that AFC wild card, and the other team will go backwards. I think it's a must win game for the Raiders, just in general over the Bengals. This value at plus 320 with a wide receiver that's played over 80% of the snaps, has 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He's going to be on the field. I thought this was a no-brainer. I really, really like this pick. In the 4 o'clock slate, we both agreed we didn't have a lot of value. I think this is the best value in the 4 o'clock games.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I loved about Bryan Edwards too is that he's kind of realizing his potential coming into this year. So obviously FTN fantasy is a big part of what we do here. And he was one of those darlings, like one of those kind of people that people expected to take a leap. Now, like obviously they were looking at guys like Terrace Marshall too, and just kind of those first, second year wide receivers, like who's going to make the leap kind of thing. And Bryan Edwards was on like a unanimous listing of like, I love what could happen with this guy.
Yeah.
And then obviously once Ruggs is no longer on the team, that obviously makes a huge advantage. So those are 3 picks in each now for Brenden and I. And like you said about the 4 p.m. slate not being very fortunate, I just for me looking at that slate, it was just really difficult. So I'm doing something that I don't normally do, and I'm making of my 5 picks, 4 of them are going to be for the 1 p.m. slate, and only 1 game for the 4 p.m. slate. I like to have them balanced, but sometimes you got to break that rule if the afternoon slate is just kind of trash like that. So as a result, 4th pick, not going to be a tight end. Going back to the Texans and Titans game, I'm taking Brandon Cooks. His anytime touchdown odds are still at plus 240. I checked again this morning. They are available at Bet365. And I know on the surface, looking at all these different picks and odds, some of them up to plus 500, this could look like a very safe or almost like cowardly pick by me. And I get that. And I apologize if people think that. But for myself, I feel like anything over plus 200 is an auto play for Cooks because he has 50 more targets than the next Texans wide receiver. Now, there's been a revolving door of wide receiver 2 pretty much all year, but it's a huge gap between the 1 and 2 on that team. And the Titans, they've been getting burned repeatedly by wide receivers this season. 16.2 receptions and 212 yards per game to the wide receiver position. Both are last in the NFL. 14 touchdowns to wide receivers. That's second last in the NFL. And 3 games with Tyrod Taylor as the quarterback, Cooks has just been eating up targets. He has 35 targets in those games, 20 catches and a touchdown. And a little trend here, I wouldn't necessarily bet on Cooks just solely on this, but for what it's worth, last year when he had Deshaun Watson as his quarterback against the Titans in 2 games, 20 catches, 25 targets, and 3 touchdowns. Now, I'm not saying Tyrod Taylor is in the Deshaun Watson realm of talent and being able to throw the football, but you cannot ignore just how bad the Titans secondary has been just even since the start of last year when they ranked near the bottom of the NFL in touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. Same thing we're seeing this year. I'm going to go with Cooks again at plus 240.
Yeah, he's like the only guy on that team that's got any value or just any kind of you have trust in. Like the Texans offense hasn't been very good. But Tyrod Taylor was his first game back. He kind of struggled. I think he'll kind of get some momentum going. He played really well at the beginning of the year in the first 2 weeks before he got the initial hamstring injury. Brad Cooks has been awesome. He's the best player on that football team. If you get him over plus 200, it's worth a look for sure.
Brenden, pick number 4 of week 11. What do you got?
All right, we're going for another wide receiver here. Going to Carolina. Cam Newton's back. We're taking his buddy, Robbie Anderson, plus 320 at FanDuel. Look, he hasn't had the greatest year. He's kind of struggled. He's been a little bit of disappointment in Carolina. I think this is the chance for him to kind of rebirth this year, get back on track, new quarterback. Him and Sam Darnold never had the connection. Now Cam's back in that offense. Washington has allowed the 2nd or 4th most touchdowns, to opposing wide receivers. Robbie Anderson is always on the field. He will play at least over 75% of snaps today. He's really good. And I think in the goal line situations, you kind of saw it last week, those sprint out routes with him. He's really fast. He's one of the fastest players on the field whenever he's on the field. So I think this is a really good look at plus 320 odds. I actually really like Carolina in this game too. So I think they're going to put up some points against this Washington defense.
I think with Robbie, I think what shocked me when he scored last week was the fact that it was a goal line, like a red zone style of touchdown, like within the 5-yard line. For me, when I think of Robbie, I always think of those 30-yard bombs over the top. Yeah. And while he can do that, I'm just not 100% sold on what Cam Newton can do throwing the football. I mean, literally last week, what did he did? I don't think he threw more than like 2 or 3 passes, and one of them was to Robbie to score that touchdown. So I think that's the key that I need to see here from the offense before I'll start vaulting in with you and jumping on, like a DJ Moore or maybe taking a long shot on Tommy Tremble or guys like that. Because what was funny is that last week, you and I joked around. We found like this offshore book that was offering Cam Newton at like plus 500 to score a touchdown, and we both just put some lunch money on it and laughed. And I was talking with some interviews this past week about what his odds would be to score a touchdown this week, and I was like, that much action off. McCaffrey back, he'll probably be plus 130, plus 140 is kind of what I had him projected. Yeah, he's at minus odds pretty much across the board. It's unbettable.
That was the first guy I looked at this week. I was the most intrigued to see who his odds were, and it was a no-go right away.
Yeah, so no thanks. So yeah, instead let's finish strong here. And this is my pick for the 4 p.m. slate. And honestly, we're going with another tight end again. Like, I can't help it. These tight ends and the odds are just so juicy. And we're going with CJ Uzomah. CJ Uzomah anytime touchdown at plus 250, odds available from FanDuel. I know it's easy to look at him and be like, okay, well, he's just for tight ends, he's 13th in catches and 18th in yards. And you're like, well, really, how prominent is he in that offense playing with those wide receivers? And it's kind of easy to forget about him, but he's actually still heavily featured in the red zone for Cincy. He leads all tight ends in snaps on the team, like over 90%. Same thing in the red zone. He's third in red zone targets on the team, second on the team in touchdowns with 5. And this is what I was talking about earlier when we were talking about who has the most touchdowns and how he's performing in comparison. So this is what I looked up just for CJ Uzomah while we were talking here. He's got just as many touchdowns this year as Travis Kelce or Dawson Knox, who each have 5. But he has more touchdowns this year than Mark Andrews, more touchdowns than Darren Waller, more touchdowns than Zach Ertz, more touchdowns than Tyler Higbee. And the reason why I bring up all of those guys, all of them are listed under plus 200 odds to score a touchdown today. So for me, I'm looking at it like, okay, this is actually pretty decent value at plus 250 in comparison to the other tight ends in the market. And the Raiders, they're tied for second last in the NFL in receptions and yards allowed to the tight end position. 6 touchdowns on the year. That's 25th. Just a couple of touchdowns behind being at the bottom of the league. So it's not like the Raiders are actually stopping tight ends the way that you would think traditionally some other defenses do. So that is my 5th pick and final pick of week 11. CJ Uzomah, anytime touchdown at plus 250.
Yeah, I like the stat that you said that the guys that are below him or the guys that have less touchdowns than him are under plus 200 odds. So you can find the value here. He's been a nice little weapon for that Bengals offense. He kind of came out of nowhere. No one really expected him to have a good year. Plus 250, it's great odds, man. I like this pick, and I'm liking your big boys trend. I like it. Gotta love a big boy.
It's a lot of tight ends. Generally, I mean, obviously, tight ends will always offer the best odds. Just because of how often they're going to be on the field, and just it's easier to justify in your brain. But at the same time, I don't like to go too tight end heavy because it's not like we're seeing tight ends just completely dominate the league like that. We have to be careful. But at the same time, 3 of my 5 picks this week, I'm okay with it. So Brenden, take us home. 5th pick of week 11. What do you got?
All right, I've had some good luck with some 2+ touchdown bets this week. I thought I'd get back on that trail today. We're going AJ Dillon 2+ plus 470 at FanDuel. No Aaron Jones today. AJ Dillon will get the start for the Green Bay Packers. He has 1 start and 1 half when he kind of took over about a quarter way through the game. Sorry. And in both of those games, he has 2+ touchdowns. So when he is the main back, he has been very productive. I think they're going to have to run all over this Vikings defense. They're going to try to take away Aaron Rodgers. They're going to try to let AJ Dillon beat you. He's going to get a ton of touches today. There was an interview earlier this week. I think he was asked how many touches he's expecting. He said 30 to 35. I don't know if that's just kind of get them off balance, but I'm expecting a heavy dose of him at 2+ plus 470 is not ideal. I like it in the plus 550 and up range, but I think this is a really, really good look for a guy that's going to get a ton of workload today.
Brenden, it's not that I don't want to comment on the pick, but I'm seeing news right now that Lamar is not going to play today. So that's tough. So just anybody who took Rashad Bateman, just a heads up, I'm going to probably cash out that bet. And I'm going to replace him with Marquez Valdes-Scantling to score an anytime touchdown versus the Vikings at plus 340. The Vikings have allowed 10 touchdowns to wide receivers this season, over 1,600 yards, both ranking bottom 5 in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers has historically carved them up, 7 touchdowns passing last year against them in 2 games. These odds should be closer to plus 200. So just as a heads up, everybody, Rashad Bateman, the first pick that I listed out, I'm likely going to cash out that bet without Lamar Jackson on the field, and I'm going to replace him with Marquez Valdes-Scantling at plus 340.
Do you want to do a rundown of the picks before we go? We got someone in the YouTube comments asking for all the picks.
Sure. All right, so I'm going to run them off right here. So first pick now, instead of Rashad Bateman, is Marquez Valdes-Scantling at plus 340. You have Michael Pruitt at plus 380. I have Adam Troutman at plus 500. You have Dalton Schultz at plus 230. You have Dalton Schultz. I have Dawson Knox at plus 230. You have Brian Edwards at plus 320. I have Brandon Cooks at plus 240. You have Robbie Anderson at plus 320. And our final picks each, I have CJ Uzomah at plus 250. And you have AJ Dillon for 2+ touchdowns at plus 470.
Here we go. Let's ride, baby.
All right, guys. Well, Thank you very much for joining Touchdown Town. If you want to check out my Twitter account later today, I'm going to have touchdown score picks coming out later for Sunday Night Football, and you can head over to FTNBets to get those now. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at GDog5000. Follow him at Brenden Deeg NFP. We'll be back next Sunday for 11 a.m. Eastern for Touchdown Town. I want to thank you all for watching. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV. Bon chance.